Well, we're here doing a fuel test, and I don't know how I'm going to actually save any of this footage because these guys are dickheads talking about new Joe Biden fuel. But our good buddy Kevin here wanted to do some fuel testing, so we've ran his S1000 today on pump gas, T4 Plus, 2WL, which is factory fuel stuff we'll get to in just a second, and good old MR12. So on the dyno with pump gas, a big old Pirelli slick on it, and the MRCK Alpha Race ECU harness and dash, the bike is making about 197 to the tire again on pump gas and just under 86 pound-feet of torque. Now, the fuel that I use most often on a lot of bikes at relatively high levels is good old VP T4, because T4 is a spec fuel in the Super Hooligan class and a couple other series as well. And just for fun, even though it's probably never really going to be used in this bike, we went ahead and decided to pour the new T4 Plus in there. I haven't actually seen the new T4 Plus till now. We've been using the old T4 not Plus, OG T4. T4 standard. As far as I can tell, the T4 Plus does exactly what the old T4 did. To the tire with the T4 Plus in the tank, the bike made 201.25 horse and just under 87.5 pound-feet of torque. That is pretty much exactly what we've seen on all the relatively close to 200 horsepower bikes with this fuel in the tank. Again, the old T4. The thing was always worth about 4 horsepower and a couple pound-feet of torque, and that's exactly what it's still doing today with the new T4 Plus from VP. Now, the other fuel that we were testing was some stuff I'd never actually heard of before. This is from Fuel Factory, and it's called 2WL. I've actually, when I just hopped on Google the other night and started looking for it, I've seen a couple other videos out there. I know the guys over at Brentune actually tested that fuel against MR12 on one of these S1000s as well, but we just were curious to go ahead and kind of replicate this test against pump gas and against the T4 Plus for some more specific reasons that really only apply to these S1000s, which we'll get to here in just a second. But the 2WL fuel honestly did surprise me, because looking at the spec sheet, I thought it was going to be pretty close to T4, and I was completely wrong. With the 2WL in the tank, the bike made 206.5 horsepower and just under 90 pound-feet of torque, which is a massive gain over pump gas and a pretty significant gain over the T4 Plus. That is 9 horsepower and about 4 pound-feet of torque over pump gas, which is massive for just pouring different gas in the tank. Now, the reason that I wanted to see the results of the 2WL, and so did our buddy Kevin here, and I wanted to compare that directly back-to-back with the T4 Plus, is because both of these fuels are unleaded. We know that MR12 is sort of the king of the hill, so to speak, when it comes to race fuel. We've used it a zillion times in the past, but on these particular bikes, again, these newer S1000s, it's objectively a bad idea, because these bikes are managed entirely by 2 very expensive wideband AFR sensors, and if you are running leaded fuel across those sensors, it does kill them very quickly. You won't ever really know you have a problem until you're either way down on power or something goes catastrophically wrong. So we were trying to find an alternative to MR12, because again, it's leaded. It's probably a bad idea to run them in these things when the sensors cost, what do these sensors cost from Alpha? Yeah, so $600 to replace both sensors is a pretty tough pill to swallow to run leaded fuel. But we did obviously then compare MR12 here at the very last set of passes we just did against the 2WL to really see how they stack up against one another. And as you can see there, they are pretty darn close. The orange line now on the screen is the MR12. It made 208.25 horsepower and just under 91 pound-feet of torque. And that is really darn similar to the TWL fuel, but the stuff's leaded. Now, again, I'm actually surprised that the 2WL did as well as it did, and it's at a really good price point compared to the cost of MR12. Issues with the AFR sensors aside, with the leaded gas. The TWL stuff retailed for what was 5 gallons?
About 150.
Yeah, so $150 for a 5-gallon pail, whereas MR12 these days is almost $200 for a 5-gallon pail. So it's less expensive. It does make about 1.5, almost 2 horsepower less, but it's also unleaded, so you can safely run it in something like these S1000s with those wideband AFR sensors and not worry about gumming them up. So I have a feeling that this is probably what Kevin here is going to end up running for the rest of the season, and what will probably suggest a lot of folks end up running as well on these BMWs, now that we've found a pretty good alternative to the MR12 that's not going to cost you $600 worth of sensors every few race weekends.